Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 mini-series with the Seattle Mariners. And we are just past the trade deadline in this 2026 season, and it's been an outstanding season for the Mariners thus far. As we sit here on August 1st, our Mariners have a 73-30 record. We're up 20 on the Rangers and 21 on the Astros in the American League West. There are a couple other excellent teams in baseball. The Orioles stand 68-38 right now, so they're 6.5 games behind us for the best record in the American League. And the Brewers are a game better than the Orioles, so they're 5.5 games behind us for the best record in baseball. That said, with the way that we are positioned right now on August 1st, anything less than home field advantage throughout the playoffs would be a bitter disappointment for this young but strong Mariners team. And we've also got a number of players who look to be in contention for leading the league in some pretty significant categories. Julio Rodriguez is tied for the league lead in homers with Tristan Casas, and Juan Soto is only one home run behind those two. Soto second in the league in ribbies, Soto leading the league in OPS, and J-Rod and Soto are tied for second in batter WAR. Pitching-wise, it would be an amazing upset at this point if Luis Castillo does not win a Cy Young Award. He's leading the league in ERA, leading the league easily in wins, third in strikeouts, and leading the league in pitcher WAR. He has an outside chance at a pitching triple crown if he strikes out a lot more batters over these last 2 months of the season. And probably jinxing him by saying this, but with a 17-0 record here on August 1st, there is an outside chance that he could get into the mid-20s in terms of his wins, which would be a very rare event in 2026 baseball. And even more unlikely, but more incredible than that, would be getting over 20 wins and having no losses on the season. Clearly a tiny margin of error for him to really end up with no losses as a starting pitcher over a full year. But it's going to be interesting to follow some of these individual targets that these players are looking for here on August 1st, assuming that we will end up guiding this team into the playoffs for the second time in our 3 seasons as the general manager of the Mariners. Even though we are a team that is clearly a win-now team, we didn't do anything at all in the trade market at the trade deadline. We do have Bo Bichette coming back, hopefully. Probably going to be a little over a week till he's with us after he does a rehab assignment, since he's been out for about 6 weeks at this point. But although we perused the trade market regularly, and there were a couple of players who could certainly have helped our team on the margin, the prices that opponents were looking for those players were just way too high for, in most cases, 2+ month rentals. And this team is playing so well and is so loaded that there weren't really a lot of players out there who we felt would be significant upgrades to what we have, either in our pretty strong starting lineup or even in our very good rotation and strong bullpen. We have made a couple of offers for extensions to some of our players. At the end of the last episode, we talked about the fact that we had put out an offer to Tyler Stevenson to potentially be our backup catcher for the next several years. He's had a nice first year in Seattle. And we've also made an offer to Brian Wu to buy out his 3 arbitration-eligible seasons and the first couple years of his free agency. He's been a solid 4th or 5th starter for us the first couple years of this playthrough, with the recent-ish additions of a couple of pretty proven big-time pitchers in Lance McCullers Jr. and Aaron Civale. He's been bounced from the rotation this year, and he hasn't necessarily excelled in the bullpen, But I still think with the fact that Gilbert is heading into his final arbitration eligible season, set to make a lot of money, and McCullers is also set to be a free agent after this year, and we have team options on Savale for the next 2 seasons, which we, at this point, would be very likely to exercise, at least for 2027. But with the potential to lose Gilbert and or McCullers, it's very conceivable with the financial situation that we could be in next year that Brian Wu will be back in the rotation next season. So I want to try to lock him up as well as locking up Stevenson to give ourselves a little more certainty about how a couple of potential spots on this team would look in 2027. There's no guarantees that we're even going to be playing a 2027 season with the Mariners, though. We'll kind of figure that out over the next few days, see how the end of this season goes, and then see how the playoffs go. And the thing that we've been following is when the next patch for OOTP 25 is likely to come out. And there was a posting from the developers today that they expect the beta of the patch to be released tomorrow, which would be Thursday the 18th as I'm recording this, but this video will be put out on Thursday the 18th. So today, if you're listening and watching this video when it first comes out, they think it'll be Thursday or Friday for that beta patch to be released, which certainly means that it's possible that the beta or the updated patch will be available for the official public release by the weekend if all goes well. And if that's the case, it's probably time for me to start thinking about my long-term sim. There still are 5 teams that are in the running for that, which I've shared in previous videos and in comments to videos. But for those of you who are wondering, the 5 teams I'm still considering for the long-term playthrough are the Washington Nationals, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Chicago White Sox, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Oakland Athletics. So we're going to be looking for a good challenge for our long-term sim this year, and once that third patch is released, hopefully within the next few days, we'll do a little playing around with it, see what we think of how the leagues evolve and how the drafts compare to the IAFA classes, and lots of other things that we play around with and consider. And we'll make a final decision of whether maybe play one more year with these Mariners in 2027, or perhaps move on to something that we hope will ultimately be bigger and better with our long-term sim. And those of you who have been following this Mariners series, hope you'll join us when we begin the team that we'll likely spend many months over the next year playing with. But before we get to that, the goal, as I noted, is to clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And I'd say an even bigger goal than that is to ensure that this team is healthy for the playoffs. And right now, as I noted, we're about 5 days from Bichette coming back, and nobody else on the Major League roster is injured, although Soto still has 3 games left in the suspension that he picked up a couple days ago. So if we can have this team healthy for the playoffs, I think we're going to be a very formidable opponent. But we've still got 2 months of baseball that will determine if we're as healthy as we hope to be come October. And Tyler Stevenson has signed the contract that we offered him a few days ago, so that's a positive. We picked him up as a minor league free agent this year with the expectation that he would be our backup catcher to Raleigh this year. But Raleigh is set to be making a lot of money next year, so it's conceivable that we'll move the youngster Harry Ford, who's spent most of this year at first base and third base, to be our starting catcher next season. Keep Stevenson in the role that he's been in this year as our starting catcher against left-handed pitchers, where he's put up a 105 WRC+. Not a huge contract, 4 years, 10.8 million, but we can get out of it after the second season if we decide to. Team option for the third year for us, and then a player option in the final year of the season. So it's really only 2 years and a little over 5 million guaranteed, with the potential buyout before the third year for a guy who's done exactly what we would have hoped as a platoon catcher for us, who's good in the clubhouse and good defensively and good hitter when he's only playing against left-handed pitching. Willing to spend $2.5 million a year for him the next couple of years. Doesn't mean that Raleigh won't be back, but does kind of set us up to have Ford as the starter and Stevenson as the backup next year if we do decide to move on Raleigh because of his salary. Gilbert and Raleigh both set to be making 14, 15-ish million next year. And with the fact that our payroll is set to go up almost 30 million from this year, it's likely that we'll probably have to move on from at least one of those guys. Unless we make a huge long run in the playoffs, make the owner tons of money, and put ourselves in a position where we get a big bump in the budget for next year, which would give us a lot more flexibility. Not counting on that happening, but it could happen. One other thing that we have done that I had forgotten, since I am in commissioner mode now, I'm able to, I don't want to say be weaselly because I'm doing this out of research more than anything else, especially because we won't be likely playing this team years into the future. But I added a couple million more dollars into the draft budget. You may remember that we had a couple of guys who were looking for way over slot that we picked in the 4th and 5th rounds this year. And with the changes that they've made to the game this year, which I like overall, your owners won't let you spend more than what you've kind of set aside for signing players you've drafted. But what I want to do and what I want to experiment with is that we've got until September 9th to sign these players. Right now, Wilson Anderson still saying he's looking for $3.6 million, and Jervoski Lane Jr. Saying he needs significantly over $8.5 million. So right now, signing both of these players is completely unrealistic, but I'm going to just kind of let them sit out on the open market for another, or not really the open market, but sit out on the market for another few weeks, make them really think about whether they want to go to college or not, and then swoop in towards the end of the month, likely making an offer to Jervoski Lane Jr. first. And if that doesn't work out, maybe trying to sign Wilson Anderson, but seeing if we can sign them for somewhat less than they say that they're looking for. It's always just interesting to get a data point on this kind of stuff, since it's something that doesn't happen every season. And it's always interesting to learn how the game works and how much flexibility you do have when guys are saying, in the case of Jervoski Lane Jr., that he needs significantly over $8.5 million. Well, we'll find out whether or not when we put several million in front of him. And another piece of good news, Brian Wu has signed that contract extension also. I mentioned that he was heading into his arbitration years, and I think this is a decent contract for us. We ended up signing him for a little less in each of the next 3 years than he was expected to make through arbitration. And then we've got team options for his first 2 free agency years. So we've given him a little more financial certainty, but we've also potentially given ourselves the ability, if Wu 3 years from now is a starting pitcher for us, to potentially have a solid major league starting pitcher at a fairly reasonable price. And we've gotten the month of August off to a really good start, 7-2 record, including 6 wins in a row. Juan Soto bounced back from that suspension with a monster week, batting close to 400 with 4 homers, 7 runs scored, and 7 ribbies. So as we sit here on August 10th, we're up 22.5 in the division, and at 80-32, we have extended our leads over both the both the Brewers for the best record in baseball and the Orioles for the best record in the AL. You can see Rodriguez and Soto all over the leaderboards, home runs, ribbies, and batter WAR for both of them. And Castillo stands at 18-0 now, still leading the league in ERA, wins, and is second now, or tied for second now in strikeouts. And we're also ready to bring our starting shortstop back, which should help us. Bichette finally recovered from that plantar fasciitis, has 12 at-bats over 4 games in AAA on his rehab assignment at this point, and time to bring him back up. That will mean that we'll send Nick Allen down to AAA once again, and Basabe will no longer be our everyday second baseman. Cole Young will move to second against right-handers. Basabe will stay there against left-handers, and then Bichette will slot right back into the lineup as our starting shortstop. And another week in the books for the Mariners. We swept the Rangers on the road, and then we did split a 4-game series in Houston, but a 5-2 record against the 2 teams chasing us will certainly keep us where we want to be, given that we've got a 23.5 and 26-game lead on those 2 teams. Just had a 14-game quality start streak snapped for Luis Castillo, which was pretty impressive. He doesn't have an L, though, although the quality start streak is over. Stands at 18-0 here on August 17th. And our Mariners just keep piling on the victories. We swept a 3-game series in Oakland, so all things considered, a 8-2 road trip against divisional foes is pretty solid. And we won 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers with our return home. So 1 week left in the month of August, and 90-35 record. The Orioles definitely seem to be fading a little bit, although it's really more us playing good, as they're still 500 over their last 10. But we are now 11 games up on the Orioles for the best record in the American League. Our magic number for the division here on August 24th is already down to 12. The Brewers at 80-46 also fallen a little back. They're 10.5 behind us now for the best record in baseball. So unless something really crazy happens, the main goal is just to keep this team healthy at this point. Soto has been on quite a tear, now leading the league in homers, ribbies, OPS, and batter WAR. Castillo still leading the league in ERA, second in strikeouts, leading in pitcher WAR, and a 19-0 record here. The 19 wins, obviously the most in the American League, as we head into the final week of August. And Castillo just won his last start to go to ridiculous 20-0. Unfortunately, our number 2 starter, George Kirby, a strained triceps, moderate impact on his throwing. He's going to be out for 2 weeks, so we're not going to take any risks at all with him, with the huge lead in the division. Put him on the IL. That will allow us to move everyone else up in the rotation. And it'll allow us to give Brian Wu a little more action as our number 5 starter, which is he's been a 4 and 5 starter for most of the past few years. And we'll also call up somebody from Tacoma a fewer days earlier than they would have been called up since we're only about 5 days away from September call-ups at this point. And yes, I realize the expression a fewer days earlier is not likely grammatically correct. And we didn't play quite as well the last week of September, but Juan Soto still named the AL Hitter of the Month for the month of August. 25 games, 383 average, 10 homers, 30 ribbies, so he is having a monster year in his second season in Seattle after a strangely disappointing debut on the West Coast. Taking a look at the standings here, 93 and 38 record, up 25 on the Astros. Magic number down to 7. We are 11.5 up on the Orioles for the best record in the American League, and 11.5 up on the Brewers for the best record in baseball. So should have home field advantage for as long as this team's alive in the playoffs. Soto leading the league in homers, ribbies, OPS, and batter WAR at this point. And as we begin the month of September, Castillo, it's gotten a little harder for him to potentially win the pitching triple crown, as he's now second in both ERA and strikeouts after leading the league in ERA much of the year. But he still is undefeated on the season, which is ridiculous. A 21-0 record for Luis Castillo. It's hard for me to imagine that even though he's probably only got 6 starts left, that he's not going to end up earning an L in one of them. But it's going to be a remarkable season regardless. But if we can put up a 24 or 25-0, that would be something pretty unprecedented. Although, quite honestly, if we put up a 23 or 24-1, that's pretty unprecedented as well. But before we get moving forward in September, going to have some decisions to make as far as some players to help us. We did reunite with Nick Enright, the Rule 5 pick from a year ago, who spent all of last year in Seattle, but had options left, so he ended up in Tacoma this year, where he did a nice job for us as our closer. Brought him up when we needed to place Mr. Kirby on the IL. And now we'll be likely looking for a few more players to help us hopefully keep this team healthy and keep this team winning over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And we've made our 4 September call-ups. Unlike last year when we had the brilliant young players, Ford and Young, the top 2 prospects in our system in AAA, ready to contribute. More of a veteran group who's come up this year. Casey Mize, who we signed to a minor league contract before the season started, was 9-5 with a 3.87 ERA in AAA for us. He'll give us another proven long arm out of the bullpen. And then we brought up 3 position players. Tyler Locklear, who was with us most of last season on the major league team, spent this year in AAA. Nick Allen, who has been back and forth between AAA and the majors this year. And then Noah Campbell, who we picked up in a trade with the Yankees last October. Spent the year at AAA Tacoma. Pretty versatile player and also a switch hitter. 27 years old already, so probably not a huge part of our future, but brought up some players who are generally pretty respectable defensively and pretty versatile, who can help us at a number of different positions, hopefully, over this last month of the season. And I made a mistake here because I've been so excited about trying to hopefully guide this team into the playoffs healthy that I had forgotten to engage with our draftees. So with the signing deadline just a couple days away, we're not going to get to be very creative here. Jervoski Lane Jr. Still says he needs a bonus significantly over $8.5 million. We've got $6,965,000. So we're going to offer him every penny that we can. Anderson's definitely going to end up going back into the pool because even if Lane refuses our offer, which is conceivable, we certainly would not have time to get one out to Anderson. It's also very conceivable that I've waited so long that we're not even going to hear an answer from Jaworski Lane Jr. My bad on that one. The good news is the team continues to play pretty well, winning 4 of 6 to start the month. And we have officially clinched a playoff spot with this win over Oakland yesterday. So taking a look at the standings here, 97-40. Soto and J-Rod both still having monster seasons. Castillo 22-0, probably 5 starts left. Can we have him avoid a loss to just have an absolutely ridiculous record this season? Honestly, the record's going to be ridiculous no matter what at this point, but 24 or 25-0 would be just such a crazy thing. You think about Major League Baseball being played for a century and a half almost at this point, and I don't think there's ever been a season like that. So we'll see if we can get lucky with Castillo over these last few weeks of the season. And we'll also see if at least, hopefully, I'll hear back from Jaworski, even though I did not focus enough. He can tell that I'm not committed to this sim for the long term, regardless of whether or not we sign Anderson or Jaworski Lane Jr., unless the new patch that's going to be coming out in the next few days is a complete disaster. I certainly won't be playing 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now with the Mariners when those guys might, in a best case scenario, potentially be major leaguers. And as we get ready for the last 4 weeks of the season, our 97-40 record right in line with Pythagorean expectations. A year ago, we were 11 games below 500 against left-handed starting pitching. This year, with 4 weeks left, we're 11 games over 500 against left-handed starting pitching. So the moves that we made in the offseason, picking up Bichette and picking up a few interesting platoon players, as well as getting a much better season out of Juan Soto, have helped us against lefties. July was our weakest month with a 608 winning percentage. We've been close to 700 or above 700 every month since then. Ranked first in the American League in runs scored, and you can see we are first in every batting category except for extra base hits, where we're second, third in steals, second in base running. The pitching, excellent as well, first in runs allowed, and we are first or second in every pitching and defensive category except for home runs allowed, where we rank fourth. So it's been an incredible season for these Seattle Mariners so far. Kirby, still an unknown recovery from his injury, but other than that, we're healthy. And with about a month to go in the season, since we'll be playing into the start of the first week of October here, should have enough time to have Kirby back and hopefully get a start or two under his belt before the playoffs. And we've clinched the AL West that we knew was going to happen. Jaworski Lane Jr. Did react to the offer that we gave him, and he did not accept it. So even though we kind of waited him out, and he said he was looking for well over $8.5 million, I have had times in previous versions of the game where a lower offer later in August or September does result in the player signing, but in this case, Jaworski was pretty committed to getting huge bucks, and he is going to re-enter the draft a year from now. And although it's the last day of the draft pick signing deadline today, looks like we can make an offer to Anderson. Says he's looking for $3.6 million. We're going to just experiment a little bit and cut that down to $3 million flat. Submit the offer to him. I'm guessing since he's not going to respond for a couple of days, we're just not going to get the opportunity to sign him or get some information out of this. But if we do, it'll be another anecdotal, albeit still interesting to me, data point. And Wilson Anderson said the $3 million was not enough, but since we've now simmed ahead a day and we're past the draft pick signing deadline, no ability to re-engage with him. Apologies that I didn't play that better over the last couple of weeks. Might have been able to extract a little bit more information, but I, of all people, am certainly not perfect. And we just lost to the Yankees 1-0. The reason I'm pointing that out, it was a game that Castillo pitched. Thought he might have been saddled with the loss, but it looks like the Yankees scored the winning run in the top of the ninth after Castillo was already out of the game. So record still stands at 22-0 here on September 12th. And as we sit here on September 14th, about 3 weeks left in the season, Soto still looking like he could lead the league in homers and ribbies. Castillo still in the mix for a pitching triple crown. He's obviously going to lead the league in wins. He's 6 strikeouts away from leading the league, and he's now leading the league in ERA again. So some brilliant seasons by our Mariners. We have slipped to below a 700 winning percentage, but we still have 100 wins already, 143 record with 19 games to go. That puts us still 11 better than the Orioles for the best record in the American League. And the Brewers at 91-53 are 9.5 behind us for the best record in baseball. So just a matter of time till we clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs. The goal, since that is a fait accompli, is to keep this team healthy and hopefully get Kirby back from that strained triceps at some point in the next week or two. And the good news is that Kirby is ready to come off of the IL, so we're going to put him right back into the rotation, hopefully have him healthy and well for the playoffs. He'll probably pitch 3 or 4 games before we get there. So the goal is just to keep him and everybody else healthy over these next three weeks or so. And we finally have an injury that is going to impact us in the playoffs. Not a critical one, but Bennett Sousa, the solid left-handed reliever who's put up a sub-3 ERA for us this year, 55 strikeouts in 45 2/3 innings. Rotator cuff strain that's going to impact him for 4 weeks, so he will likely miss the ALDS. I guess there's a chance he could be back for a potential ALCS, so hopefully we'll be able to be successful without him. If we're going to have an injury, he'd probably be, among the 5 players on the 26-man roster I'd most want it to happen to. Sorry, Bennett. But not a great situation, but certainly not a nightmare situation either. And Juan Soto, August Player of the Month, named Player of the Week for this week in the American League, hit .391, another 3 homers and 8 ribbies. As we sit here on September 21st, 105-44 record. We are 11 games up on the Orioles, so math tells me that we are getting very close to clinching the best record in the American League, and the Orioles are now better than the Brewers, so we're getting dangerously close to clinching the best record in baseball as well. Castillo got another win last week, 23-0 now, leading the league in ERA, wins, and strikeouts at this point, as well as pitcher WAR, not surprisingly. Savale, second in the league in ERA, third in the league in wins, and McCullers Jr. is now third in the league in ERA. So a brilliant performance by the starting pitchers on Seattle in this incredible 2026 season thus far. And another one of those little injuries, but not the kind that you want to see on September 26th. J-Rod day-to-day with a thumb contusion. We're not going to put him on the IL, but we are going to not really play him much. We're playing for nothing at this point. J-Rod is actually probably playing for MVP votes, but with Soto leading the league easily in homers, ribbies, and OPS now, and batter WAR, and Soto also banged up with a mild hamstring strain. We're going to try to get both of those guys out of the lineup and healed up. It's probably just a matter with Soto of whether Bobby Witt Jr. or Adley Rutschman, who's also had a big game and a big season and play more important defensive positions than him, can make up some ground on him over this past week or this next week or so before we get to the playoffs. But the goal is to win a title, so if we have to shut down Soto and J-Rod this last week or so of the season, that is what we are going to have to do at 107 and 46. We've mathematically clinched the best record in baseball at this point, as well as home field advantage, so the point is to keep people healthy. If you're wondering about Castillo, 24-0, leading the league in ERA, wins, and strikeouts. And he will be pitching again relatively shortly, pitching tomorrow, actually, in what may be his final start of the season. He could do another one after it. Don't know how risky I want to get with him. We'll play it by ear. And we've got 1 week left to go in the season. We've got 3 games at home against Oakland here to finish off the month of September. And then when we move into the month of October, we've got 4 games left against Texas. It's a really weird situation because we've got players playing for potentially huge personal awards, but the main goal is to win it all. But after a very healthy season, J-Rod, that thumb contusion, is going to miss this last week. We're just not going to play him, but he should be ready for the playoffs. Soto is a little bit more of a concern because the recovery time is unknown. We've benched him as well, which kind of stinks because he was on his way to a second 50 home run season. Maybe he'll be healthy in the next couple days. The other thing that kind of stinks is that we're sending Castillo and that 24-0 record to the mound today as we sit here on September 28th, undefeated, still leading the league in ERA, wins, and strikeouts. We're going up against a pretty bad Oakland team at 60 and 96, but he's also going to be without the best 2 players on the team, Soto and Rodriguez, in the lineup. So maybe that incredible streak comes to an end today and he takes the L. Yep, the win streak is over. We lost to Oakland, so he's likely going to lose his last decision of the year. 4-1 loss. So the truly crazily historic season in the hopes of that are over with the 24-1 record now for Castillo. Still pitched pretty well. 9 strikeouts, 7 batters on base, and 2 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings. So although the dream of the crazy, insane, undefeated season for Castillo is over, that performance did enhance his ability to hold on to the league lead in ERA and in strikeouts, where he's now 14 up on Tiedemann. But Tiedemann may still certainly has 1 game left and may still have 2 games left. We'll have to decide whether we want to pitch Castillo in a game against Texas or not. And we got a win against Oakland, which is good. But, of course, as we're sitting here with a potentially brilliant team, all of a sudden the injuries are starting to add up this final week of the season. Josh Lowe out with elbow inflammation for 2 weeks. Brought him over in a trade with Tampa Bay. And he was a platoon player for us, starting against just right-handers. And he's been exceptional in that role. 300 average, 19 homers, 73 ribbies. 44 doubles, 141 WRC plus, 5.1 WAR on the season. And now he will likely be out for the first round of the playoffs as well. Just 2 games left in the regular season, and Castillo's spot in the rotation is up again. We're going to have a first round bye. So I think I let him pitch. If we were 24-0 right now, I don't know what I would do. There's a part of me that respects the Ted Williams approach and going out there and playing through the end of the season. But given that he's already had 1 loss on the year, I'm sure we'd prefer him not going into the postseason with 2 losses in a row. But as we look at the standings here, he's only 6 strikeouts up on Tyler Glass now at this point, but he won't be pitching again. And when we look at Ricky Tiedemann, he could be pitching the last game of the season tomorrow. It's probably his regular spot in the rotation. We're up 10 strikeouts on him, so there's no guarantee that Tiedemann would even be able to rack up that many. But we are going to go ahead and let Castillo pitch here. Good news is that J-Rod will be back, so we're going to get 2 final games for him these last couple days of the year. He's now healthy. Juan Soto, though, the recovery still unknown. And Josh Lowe, a week away. Bennett Sousa, 2 to 3 weeks away. So there are injuries. Hopefully they're not crippling to us. The most important thing is for Soto to get healthy. He's been benched for a while with that hamstring strain, but does not seem to be getting any better. And we did get a W in the penultimate game of the year. Castillo was not great. 7 hits. 5 strikeouts over 4 2/3 innings, was not involved in the decision. And he's day-to-day with a strained hamstring, which will influence his running. So I probably deserve that for pitching him the last day, but he also had a chance to get a pitching triple crown. And if Tiedemann had a huge game that last game of the year, I'd feel bad about it. But definitely feel like the game has been punishing us a bit with the injuries over these last couple weeks of the season. Probably should have been a little more prudent with Castillo, but it is what it is at this point. Play 1 more game and finish off this regular season. Soto, still unknown recovery from that mild hamstring strain. Lowe a week away, Sousa 2 weeks away. Casey Mize not really important with that finger blister since he's only up because of the September call-ups. Castillo with that moderate impact on running may struggle to field his position a bit, but I have a feeling we'll be pitching him in the playoffs. So taking a look at... I still guess we still got 1 game left. I simmed ahead to today, but I haven't actually played today. So let's go finish today with this last game of the season, and then we will check in on all the stuff that I thought I was checking in on. But Soto is going to lead the league in homers, ribbies, OPS, and likely batter war unless Bobby Witt Jr. has a huge day on the final day of the season, which he did. He got by Soto. So Soto missing these last few games of the season, actually the last week and a half, 2 weeks of the season, may end up costing him an MVP award. Not that it's all just going to come down to WAR, but close to a 300 average, 24 homers, 94 ribbies, 21 steals, 46 doubles, 131 WRC plus for Bobby Witt Jr. Soto, 48 homers, 135 ribbies. The batting average did dip to 296, 177 WRC plus. So it's really a matter of how much they reward Bobby Witt Jr. for being a solid defensive third baseman. You can see Rutschman did end up getting by J-Rod for third in the league in batter war. Pitching-wise, Castillo does win the pitching triple crown, and Tiedemann didn't end up pitching that last day of the year, even though he could have. I guess Toronto wasn't really playing for anything, but pitching triple crown for Castillo, 7.4 pitcher WAR, day-to-day with a strained hamstring, but a 24-1 record, pitching triple crown, leads the league in WAR. Clearly, he will be the American League most valuable player. So we will find out if any of these guys get a little bit healthier over the next few days in our next episode. Ended up being a monster season for the Mariners when all was said and done. A 112-50 record. We're going to have home field advantage for as long as we're alive in the playoffs. We are going to have several days to rest up with those wild card series going on. Hopefully, we'll be a little healthier when it comes time for the playoffs. It's been a pretty special season for the Mariners. You can see that the Red Sox ended up surging into a tie with the Orioles for the AL East. And with the Red Sox listed first, I'm assuming that means that they are the team that's actually going to be credited with winning the division after the Orioles were the second best team in the American League basically all year. Milwaukee, as expected, ends up the best team in the NL. But we'll find out how we do in the playoffs in our next episode. You can all mock me for the injuries and my stupidity in the comments. And we'll see if, despite my shortcomings, these Mariners can do something special in the playoffs here in 2026. And potentially this 112-win team will avenge the team that won even more games about 25 years earlier. And we'll find out what happens in the playoffs in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.